morning and to neighbors. Today is the Neighbours' Day for us, the congregation. We have set aside this day whereby we invite our neighbors to come. We recognize in a church setting, in a biblical setting, that everyone is our neighbor. Yet we also would want you to invite the neighbor next door who lives next door to you. It might be a very horrible neighbor. It might be the people from hell, the people whose dog constantly barks, who's got a cat that comes and messes on your property. They might be shouting and yelling at one another all day. It might be that they park in front of your parking place. Might be that they put their music so loud that you cannot hear your own radio playing. These are some of the things that irritate us from time to time. When I go to your neighbor, what will they say about you? We recognize this is a two-edged cutting sword, goes cut both ways. I want you to know that Jesus in John chapter 4 goes through Samaria to Galilee. It says here in verse 4, now he had to go through Samaria. He had to go to Samaria. You need to know that Samaria is north of Jerusalem. It's not, you do not go up to Samaria, you actually go down because Jerusalem is on a mountain. But it's still north of Jerusalem and the area of Judea. What had happened is Samaria, they were inhabited by people who were dispersed during the northern kingdom. They were dispersed there, and people from all different cultures came to live there. Also, at Jesus' time, some of the people who came back from Babylonia, these people have married, the Jewish people married Gentiles, and because they married Gentiles, they were not welcome in Jerusalem anymore, and therefore some of them elected them to stay in Babylonia. Others moved to Samaria, and they stayed in that area. The Jews, and especially those who were steeped in their religion, when they went to Samaria, going through Samaria was a shortcut. Probably could cut 20 kilometers of your trip. Now remember, for you and me, we choose sometimes to drive longer because there's less traffic. But remember, they did not have cars. They had to walk. They had to walk. They didn't even have bicycles. Maybe ride the donkey. And therefore, 20 kilometers was a long way. And therefore, the majority of them, because they were so prejudiced, because they didn't like the Samaritans, because the opposition against the Samaritans, they would walk along the border in Judean area, cross the Jordan, and then on the other side of the Jordan, go to Samaria. They chose to go the long way instead of going through Samaria. There was nothing in the world that prevented them from going to Samaria to go to Galilee. They chose not to because of the neighbor stance. Now we recognize that the Samaritans were not on the same religious level as the Jewish people. The Samaritans only accepted the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Only Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Those are the only 5 books that they accepted. The rest of the Old Testament, they rejected that. The majority of the places that that were mountains, they had all kinds of places where they worshiped for Baal and for other of the small g gods. They were people who were steeped in their own way of doing things. Yes, they believed that the Messiah was to come like the Jewish people in Judea would, but they probably didn't want him to be a Jew, they wanted him to be a Samaritan. You can find this kind of headbutting all of the time. And it was more so during the time of Jesus, when Jesus now, the text says that he had to go through Samaria. Based on what I said to you, it was not a must that they had to go through. Why then did he go through Samaria? It was a personal choice. It was a personal choice. Number one, there was a woman at the well. He would meet this person, whom we will talk about in a little bit much more. He will meet this person who really needed him. They needed she needed his counsel. She needed his direction. She needed spiritual water. She was at the well. Why? Why at 12 o'clock in the day? Because of her background. She was a person who's had 5 husbands. She was now shacking up with a man, not lived, did not get married to him. And you can imagine all of the townspeople. They did not have the Samaritan Gazette. They did not have a special newscast. They did not even have a radio service or nothing. The only thing that they could talk about was in the morning early, the ladies would go to the well, and they would take their cans, they would fill it up, and while they are there, they're talking about everybody. All of the bad neighbors around them, and especially about the Jews as well. And the evening, the same thing. This is what they did. This woman goes to the well at 12 o'clock. Why? Because there would be nobody there. She wanted to be alone. She wanted to mind her own business because she knew that the whole town was crucifying her in the morning and in the evening. She knew that her lifestyle was not conducive to great neighborliness. And as a result, she goes to the well at 12 o'clock so that she could avoid starings, ugly remarks, so that she could avoid maybe people even throwing stones at her, if not physically, then certainly emotional stones. But Jesus had to go there because of the Samaritan's salvation. You will know that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, that when Jesus had spoken to her and revealed to her that he is the Messiah, that she went to the town and she told everybody, people whom she was running away with, she went to everybody and said, I have found somebody at the well. Go and see who's at the well. Could this be the Messiah? It's amazing how that a common cause will spur people on, and how that the common cause will break down barriers between neighbors. You might hate your neighbor, but if there's a fire next door, what will happen? Will you let his house burn? No, he's burn. He's not. Your house also can burn. Therefore, you will go. COVID caused us to recognize that we need to tie together. COVID taught us that we need to help one another. And so we see here then that when the penny dropped in her life, and she saw this is the Messiah, because he knew about things in my life that I did not want others to know. She went to go and tell everybody, not only her neighbors, but the people a couple of streets down from her. But these people then went to the well. They found Jesus there. And because they learned from him, they invited him to stay 2 more days. And all day they assembled and they listened to him. And then those beautiful words where they came back to the woman and they said to her, we believe, no longer because you said so, but because we have met him and we believe that he is the Messiah. Jesus had to go to the well for the third reason, that is for his apostles. His apostles were people, Jewish people who were brought up in the community. And as a result of that, they had those dark glasses on of the Jewish culture. They're mixed with. We know that you and I teach our children, be careful who you mix with at school. Be careful how you invite your friends. Be careful who you bring home. We teach that to our children, and that's great teaching. And we see that the Jewish people also here, they then, instead of going to evangelize people who are worshiping their gods in the mountain to show them that God is superior, they chose to ignore them. They chose to steer around them. They chose not to mix with them whatsoever. And therefore, because they were of that persuasion, Jesus had to show to them, these are people who have a problem. The problem is a soul problem. Also, yes, just not so long before that time, Jesus was on his way from Galilee to Jerusalem, and they walked through Samaria, and guess what? Some of the Samaritans saw that they were going through a town, taking a shortcut through a town, said to them, Jewish people do not go through our town, walk around. We, especially as Boere, we don't like to be inconvenienced, especially when a taxi drives in front of you. Somehow we have a short temper with that kind of thing. I can imagine the two brothers, James and John. They said, Lord, shall we take it from this lot? Why don't we let fire and hell? And that's the time when Jesus said, look, children of thunder, sons of thunder. We see that mindset where not only did the Jews hate the Samaritans, but there was the same feeling from the Samaritan toward the Jews. And therefore Jesus had to go there to go and show his disciples. It's amazing that when they arrived back from the shops, they saw Jesus talking to the Samaritan woman. Jesus, they didn't ask him, what is your story? It was forbidden. Culture did not allow a man to address a woman, or a woman to address a man, and even more among the Jews and the Samaritans, it would have been a big taboo. But they didn't ask him. When they said, come on, let's eat, Jesus says, I'm filled. I have food that you don't know about. It's amazing how that Jesus saw the need for salvation for souls much more important than feeding his own body. He had a preference in taking the gospel, the good news, to everyone. And in this way, Jesus then became an example also to his apostles. You see, today we can learn many, many pertinent lessons from Jesus as to Jews and Samaritans, talking about neighbors. We see here that, number one, Jesus did what few people practice. He was the one who went to the Samaritans. If he had waited for the Samaritans to come to him, he would have still have been waiting today, because they would not have come. You see what I'm saying? Jesus is the one who initiates. Jesus is the one who goes out of the way. Jesus is the one who moves from the center to go and speak to the people in Samaria. Because of this, you will find that after his death, Jesus died 3 days, 3 nights, he rose up, and then he stayed on earth for 40 more days. And then just before he ascends on high, he tells the 11, at that time Judas was not there anymore. He tells the 11, I want you to go and be my witnesses in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the city of Jerusalem. In Judea is the area around Jerusalem, that the province, and to Samaria. I want you to go to Samaria. Do you see that Jesus already here in John 4 was preparing his disciples for this commission to the Samaritans? We also know in verse 8, he says to them, also go to the ends of the earth, meaning go to the Gentiles as well. We see here then that this was a tremendous focus that Jesus had to show them it is good, it is right, and I want you to go speak to the Samaritans. Later in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 8, we find that the disciples then went to Samaria, and they spent some time in Samaria, baptizing so many people that Peter and John had to go up there and lay hands on those people so that they could receive some of the miraculous manifestations of the Holy Spirit. Yes, we see then that the church grew, not only in Jerusalem where it started, but in Judea it had to go to Samaria. Jesus had to go to Samaria so that the gospel will go there. Jesus taught on this topic on the Samaritans. Let's go to Luke chapter. There's a couple of passages here in Luke. I find Luke is a doctor. Luke was a Gentile doctor. And so I find it very, very enlightening about what he has recorded then about Jesus' life. Luke 12, verse 8. I tell you, whoever acknowledges me before men, the Son of Man will also acknowledge him before the angels of God. Jesus is talking here, and he says to you and me that we have a responsibility to talk to our neighbors. What is the greater outcome? The cultural problem, the religious problem that was there, or was it a situation where God wanted them to go out and to then tell those people, believe in God and trust him? Jesus says to the disciples here in Luke's account, I want you to know that if you acknowledge me, it doesn't matter who this person is, the person who acknowledges me before my Father, I will also acknowledge that person before my Father. In Luke chapter 9, from verse 51 to 56, we see that as the time approached for him to be taken to heaven, Jesus resolutely set he's out for Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead who went into the Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him because he was heading toward Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them? But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they went to another village. Luke chapter 10, we can see, therefore, that there was antagonism also from the Samaritan side. Luke chapter 10 from verse 29. But he wanted to justify himself, and he asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, the man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, where he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road. The priest probably had been in Jerusalem for duty for a month, and he was looking forward to see his family. His wife had told him, there are certain things that you have to do around the house, you better come quickly. And so probably he had a great excuse for not stopping to help this person. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. He saw the man. He saw the need. he chose not to react. Verse 12, so too, excuse me, 32. Verse 32, so too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. Maybe this Levite was on his way to go to temple duty. It was going to be a very important month for him. Maybe he was already running a little bit late. He recognized that if I spend some time with this man, I am going to be having time limitations on the other side. So here, this Levite, although he saw the man, he chose to pass by on the other side. Verse 33, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and then he put the man on his own donkey, took him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you might have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. We see here that Jesus uses an illustration from life, and he says, this is what happened. The Samaritan went out of his way. When you read this passage again in your own time, you will see that Samaritan actually did 10 things. Not only did it cost him money, it cost him his own convenience. It cost him time, cost him effort. You need to look into, see how this man acted when he saw the need in this person's life. The Samaritan was away from home because this Jericho is a very, very treacherous road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Very, very treacherous. Even today, those Israelis cannot drive. They also drive the wrong side of the road. Even though you stand behind them, they'll turn right on the wrong side. I was there. I've seen that. They're worse than South African taxis. This is how they drive. Now, you need to know that was a very treacherous place to be caught alive. This man fell into the hands of robbers. They took what was not theirs. This man, the Samaritan, gave what was his in order to restore this person again. What a beautiful, beautiful lesson for us, where Jesus then says, this person has a soul, acknowledge him, work with him, deal with him. I went back to John chapter 4, verse 7. Jesus initiates that contact with the woman at the well. I need water. It's a very basic thing. He needs some water. He is at the well. There was a bucket there. There was nothing to drink. I need some water. Immediately, this woman is on edge. And she was asking, how is it a Jew? A Jew? Talk to me. She's a Samaritan woman. Oh, not only a Jew Gentile thing, now it's a male-female thing too. Oh, what is your story? These barriers. And Jesus then will tell her, well, if you give me some water, I can give you some living water. You think you're even better than Brother Jacob, our forefather who done this well. Now you can give me living water. You don't even have something to put in the pit. You don't have anything to drink, and now you're offering me water. You can see a reasoning. She said, oh, you cuckoo, man. You're not right. Jesus initiates the contact. He is the one who goes with an open hand. I need. Instead of I have something that you need. I need water. I do believe it's a very, very important way that we can go to our neighbor and break ice barriers. Why? Because your neighbor needs Jesus. He needs you. This is the reason why you have all the problems around the house, is because your neighbor is not a Christian, because your neighbor is not worshiping or acting in a way that is conducive for a great relationship. We need to, as Christians, we need to initiate relationships. We need to start and build the breach. I know of a good friend of mine who went from here to the United States. Was flying, and when he went in the plane here in Cape Town, he asked this person, "Are you a Christian?" And this person said, "Well, I don't know whether I'm a Christian or not. How do you define Christianity?" And for the next 24 hours, they were in one another's company. This preacher taught them the gospel. And when they reached the other side, this man said to his family, "I will see you now. I'm just going away to be baptized first. Then I'll come back to the airport to come and see you." We can see how that here was a total stranger. But the preacher talks to him and he asks him, "Are you a Christian?" We need to recognize that we can break down barriers by bringing, first of all, our needs to that person. Number two, we need to know that we need to be helping the helpless. This woman was alone. She was sad. She felt guilt and shame. Yes, very, very, very angry. This is where she was. But all of these that I've mentioned are symptoms of a deeper problem. The deeper problem was that she did not have a relationship with God. Jesus saw these symptoms, but he goes to the heart of a problem and he talks to her about what she needs. She needs that living water. He does not deal with the symptoms. He does not throw a stone and say, "Chris, what are you doing here?" No. He does not say to her, "You have a filthy attitude." He doesn't go to her and say, "You have a fine sheep coming here at 12 o'clock at lunchtime to come and draw water." He says nothing of those. He ignores those. He talks to her about her soul. His directions then leads her to a change of life. If you read verses 28 to 30 in this chapter, you'll find that when the disciples came back, this woman said to Jesus, "I wanted the water. Give me that water." And then Jesus says to her, "I am the Messiah." That's the time when she leaves her water jar. She goes to the well to go and bring water. Now, I am a person who is I try to be very timely. I try to work. If I have to go, I'd rather carry more than I have to talk twice. This woman comes to draw water, and now she's going. She leaves the water jar, and the mission has changed. Instead of needing water, she says, everybody in the town needs to meet Jesus. And therefore, we see as a greater picture that in Acts chapter 8, when the Samaritans heard, many of them obeyed the gospel. No longer was the spiritual barrier there. No longer was the social barrier there. No longer were the mountains an issue of worship. God became their place and the person whom they worship. As a result, we need to know that Jesus helped the helpless. You and I, we need our neighbors. I think that COVID taught us that we need good neighbors. We saw in our street, nobody was allowed to go outside the street. This the story that Vedan spoke about earlier. How that after a while people were standing and shouting at their neighbors across the road from one another. They were not allowed to go down. Who did they talk to? Tired of speaking to their own family. They started talking to people whom they didn't know before. It's amazing how you and I are living in a country where we are very much still divided along racial lines, worship lines, where we are still divided along some petty lines that we have created in our own customs. Instead of recognizing that the person out there has a soul, has a need for salvation, we focus on those things which are not really, really important. And we make that the prime point in life. Jesus went and he spoke to this woman with all of her issues. Your neighbor has issues. Everybody in South Africa has issues. Yes, even you and me. We all need Christ, because that is, as Venan so beautifully illustrated from Romans chapter 3, we all have sinned and we fall short of the glory of Christ. We need to recognize that when Jesus comes back, there's not going to be a separate heaven for Jews and a separate heaven for Gentiles. There's not going to be a separate heaven for Buddha and for blacks and for colored people and for Indians. There's only one heaven. Even Zimbabweans are welcome. We need to know that we have a role to play. Who is going to break down the wall? Who will make the difference? What did Jesus do? Jesus is the one who initiated that change. I pray that we will take a role. We will take a page from the book of Jesus, and that we will do whatever we have to do to bring South Africa to its knees in front of a living God, worshiping him and obeying his will. Take the first step. It's only a step. Only a sweet couple of words. And it could change your whole life. It could change the life of your neighbor. Why not? Why not? Because the gospel is truly, is for all. Everyone who acknowledges me, Luke says in his account when he quotes Jesus, everyone who acknowledges me, I will acknowledge before my Father. Therefore, my friends, let you and me take the first steps with our neighbor and let us make a difference. May the Lord bless us. Father, I pray that we will today recognize that we can paint our neighbor all colors of the rainbow. Yet we know that at the end of the day, they need you. Help us not to look at symptoms, but help us to look at solutions. And we know that you are the only solution. In Jesus we pray. Amen.